Politicians are not often known for their candor. What's said on the campaign trail often stays there. Raising the level of debate should be a benefit to voters. But who benefits when a candidate's promise goes beyond the scope of the office they seek?
Republican candidate Karen Polito and Democratic candidate Steve Grossman both have grand visions of how they'll make Massachusetts better. But can they put their plans into action from the Treasurer's office? Polito, a 5-time Shrewsbury state representative, says one-party political rule has derailed Beacon Hill. She believes Democrats have not been fiscally responsible and says as treasurer, she'll reject any borrowing she disagrees with.
It's a higher, more visible bully pulpit that can be used to spotlight and highlight the issues on Beacon Hill that need change. And the treasurer is actually empowered with borrowing authority.
State Treasury officials say Polito may be overstating the authority of the office. They stressed it's the legislature and governor who make the decisions. Several signatures are necessary to borrow money for the state, not just the treasurers.
You don't get to not sign off on those bonds because you don't like where the legislature is going.
Former Massachusetts State Treasurer Shannon O'Brien put the authority of the office in perspective.
That's not the treasurer's job. You can speak about it, you can talk about it, but to say that you're going to hold up bonds because you, one person, not the entire legislature, not the governor who really has the responsibility to do that, I think it really is a misplaced usurpation of power and frankly would not be allowed.
You lift people up and give them the tools to compete and win.
Grossman, a former chair of both the national and state Democratic Party, says he'll bring jobs back to the Commonwealth as its next treasurer.
What I've done all my life is I've gone to work every day and run a business. I've created jobs, I've met payrolls, I've run a business, and I've grown a business pretty dramatically and been able to create some jobs and economic opportunity all over the state.
Grossman says moving state investments into smaller banks won't increase the size of government, but will get local banks lending again.
To really give those small businesses the lifeline they need to grow and to create some jobs. 300,000 people out of work need help from the small business sector of the economy. That's why I'd like to be state treasurer.
Grossman says his treasury will require lending transparency from banks. But could the state guarantee lending to small local business? The treasurer's office says no. The treasurer has no authority over personal lending.
Public service was never intended, at least at the state elected office level, to be a career.
Polito says pensions keep state legislators in office too long. Although she's participated in the pension program since she was first elected in 2000, she says she'll withdraw if elected treasurer. Treasury officials say the only way that can happen is if she's no longer employed by the state.
And that's why I have written to the State Retirement Board and I have stated to them that I won't be taking a public pension and that I have asked for my contributions to be withdrawn.
Treasury officials acknowledge her inquiry, but said that they have not received an official request. Both candidates claim they'll be a watchdog for the people, but they differ on how extensive their oversight role would be.
You could use the full potential of the job of treasurer to do 3 things: to protect the public's money, to help create jobs, and help revitalize small businesses. And that's the reason I got into this race, to do just those 3 things.
I believe having a check and balance within the executive branch and legislature works better, and certainly in a constitutional office as the treasurer, to be able to utilize the treasurer's office, the chief borrowing officer of the state, to be that check on the system.
From her own experience, O'Brien says the office does have influence beyond its core responsibilities.
I would weigh in as the treasurer, as the so-called fiscal expert, and say, I think that we should be paying down our debt before we spend more money. Now, again, I'm not a legislator. I don't get to vote on those things. I'm not the governor. I don't get to file the legislation or veto it. But I use the bully pulpit and the expertise that I had and the gravitas, if you will, that I'm paying attention to making sure that the numbers add up.
With so many campaign promises that go beyond the job description,
how? Low taxes, less spending, more jobs.
It's time to restore responsibility and respect.
The people may have to watch the next treasurer to make sure they're doing their job. For the Boston University News Service, I'm Jason Martyr.